Joined now by TSN hockey analyst, former Vancouver Canuck, and one-time half-point per game defenseman for MODO in the Allsvenskan. It is Frank Corrado here with Sekeres and Price. How you doing, buddy?
The MODO reference is quite relevant because they're one win away from getting themselves back up to the SHL. So exciting times in northern Sweden.
And that is what brought it on my radar. We had our Swedish hockey insider, Mike Zander, on the other day, and we're looking at that series from the Djurgårdens end because Canucks first-rounder Jonathan Lekkerimäki is having a hell of a playoff trying to get that club up to the SHL. Tell me, when you played in Ovik for MODO, what was the experience like? How big were the Sedins at that point, or was it still just a Forsberg and Foppa
thing? The only
thing?
negative thing I could say about playing there was that our team was not very good and we missed the playoffs that year. That is it. Like, everything about living there, playing there, being there was incredible. And the Twins are a really big deal there. Like, obviously Naslund and Forsberg are big deals, but it's crazy when you're living in that small town. I don't know, it's like 30,000 people, 60,000 at the most. And it's just a hockey factory. The whole town revolves around hockey. The rink is beautiful. It's one of the best arenas in Sweden. It's right on the water. It's like the most gorgeous kind of setup. And I actually had a really cool apartment there where I like overlooked the arena and the water, and I had this great view. Like, it's one of those places where you wake up every morning and you're like, man, I'm in a different part of the world, but this is awesome. Like, this is really cool. I would love to stay here a little bit longer. And it's just like, there's so much of an influence there with the hockey players that have played there. It's really cool to see.
Was Marcus involved with the club when he played there?
He wasn't. So he had been out of I guess, touch with the club for a little while there. But I'm pretty sure it was him or Forsberg, that both of them do have some like real estate there, like some developments that have gone up. So I know like one of the guys in our team lived in Forsberg's condo development. One guy lived in Naslund's, and like it's beautiful. Like, it's really nice.
So you didn't use your Danny Hank clout? You didn't be
I was going to say, did you name drop?
No, I didn't use any kind of clout like that. But I'll tell you a quick story. There was a one time we kind of all shared the gym there between the men's team, the women's team, the under 20, the under 18, and we're staggered at different times throughout the day. And I basically tore my groin right off the bone when I was playing there. So I'm in there one day just doing some rehab stuff, and there's this poor kid kind of hobbling around. And he's got like the crutches, and I could tell his knee was really dinged up. So I just kind of talked to him like in English, because everyone speaks pretty good English there. I was telling him, listen, I had a lot of knee problems, all this stuff. How you doing? You hanging in there? And then I got a text like 2 days later from Danny Sedin. He's like, that's my nephew you were talking to there. He was really happy that you took the time to talk to him. I had no clue. But I guess like there can't be a Sedin too far away when you're in Ovik.
That's right. That's right.
That says a lot about Frank Corrado and a lot about Daniel Sedin, though. Too. Kindness on both fronts.
2 degrees of Daniel Sedin in MODO and Ovik. Hey, could be a very big night there in your town, Frank. What do you make of this Leafs Lightning series, and do you think this is the year where the Leafs can actually close out a first-round series lead?
I cautiously say that I do think it is the year. Now, everyone's been saying this feels different with the Leafs. And I'm trying to think, okay, what does that actually mean? Like, it's just a gut feeling for sure, but like, what is tangible that we can see? They won 2 games where they came from behind. How many times in the past have we seen the Leafs like be out of a game and they're out of the game? Like they're not winning that game in the playoffs. It's just not going their way. They pack it in. We'll see you next game. So they win 2 come from behind wins. Then they win 2 games in overtime. And you win 2 games in overtime in a series, that's a pretty big deal. Like, it's tough to come back from those. Those are very deflating for the visiting or the losing team. So they've done that. They've won the goalie battle. Like, who would have thought that Ilya Samsonov would be making more critical saves than Andrei Vasilevsky? This is the guy, Vasilevsky, who can steal you a game at the drop of a hat, and he's looked pretty human. And a lot of that has to do with the way the Leafs have been approaching shooting on him. Too many times in the past, the offense dries up for the Leafs because They want to score, not going to say off the rush, but they want to score on basically shots from distance, high slot, where it's a clean look. It's a clean look at the net, but it's also a clean look for Vasilevsky. Well, in this series, there's a simplicity to their game where they've had a presence in front of him way more than they ever have. And it's tips, it's screens, it's shots from the point. I don't know like the analytics, but I bet if you dug deep into it, the Leafs don't take a ton of point shots. Like they're a team that's always kind of looking to defer. It's like D to D or skated around into the zone. They don't really care about quantity of chances. They care about higher quality. So they've done a better job of balancing that, and that's made Vasilevsky look human. So things do feel a little different around this team. And if it happens tonight, it would be the best case scenario because, as you know, the longer you keep Tampa Bay around in the series, they know how to manage things. Like, they know how to prolong a series. They've been down 3-1 in the past, and they've come back and won those series. So it is imperative that the Leafs show something different tonight. They've done the overtime win. They've done the comeback win on the road. Tonight, they need to do the win where, similar to how Edmonton played against LA the other night, you go in there, it's a great start. You walk out of that first period, and it's like a 2-0 lead, and you play with the lead all night, and you just build off that, and you bury them. That is when, if that doesn't happen, that's when Leafs fans are starting to think, oh, here we go again.
Yeah, and with good reason. And what I will say is this. If Toronto does win in advance here, it is going to be framed, particularly in this country, as Leafs finally break through, Leaf, as you well know. It will also end, I think, one of the great runs we have seen or will see in the salary cap era. To make 3 straight Stanley Cup finals, winning 2 of them, and I know one was in the bubble, that is a hell of an achievement for Tampa Bay and for John Cooper. And if it ends here tonight against the Leafs, I think that needs to be acknowledged a little bit.
A modern dynasty? Do we have to adjust dynastic definitions?
I mean, remember, there had not been a repeat champion in the Cup era until Pittsburgh, and then Tampa did it as well. You know, not to mention, I mean, just take a look at, they were in the Stanley Cup final last year too, Blick.
The term dynasty needs to be adjusted a little bit because the salary cap is so hard to keep players. And so if you're a relevant team, the way Tampa Bay has been, it absolutely is a dynasty. I saw something going around the other day saying that, because it was a bubble and because it was a shortened season, it's actually not a dynasty. Go tell that to the players that grinded through all that. Tell that to the guys that sacrificed and put a lot on the line under tough circumstances and won those games when there was every excuse in the book. Give me a break. Like that's absolutely worthy of it.
And if other teams mailed it in the bubble, Frank, that's on them. Yeah. That speaks to their professionalism, and that's what they didn't bring it. So,
and just one other question on that series here, Frank, just because we had an item here on John Cooper and his sense of humor, even being down 3-1. We're a little bit biased. You know, he's been great to us in the past. We call him the lawyer from Prince George because he grew up here in British Columbia. Would you like to play for John Cooper?
I think so. I think it seems like he's pretty honest and direct with his players. It's funny, like everyone calls him a lawyer, and he has a lot of that lawyer speak. No one's calling him a politician, but it feels like he's more like a politician, the way he can kind of guide things a certain way.
I agree. Very good.
You see those, I don't watch it on TV, but every once in a while something will pop up on Instagram of like the House of Commons, and you see they ask him a question. It doesn't matter who it is. They're asking the person the question. The answer has nothing to do with that question. It is, I'm just saying this regardless of what you asked me. And that's what he's like.
With regards to the Leafs, I saw this with Edmonton in the last couple of years, and Canucks fans should take note of this too. There is a moment when your young players, your kiddie core, becomes adult, becomes mature, savvy veterans. There is a different look to Nylander, Marner, and Matthews right now. They look more like veterans in the league, and Draisaitl and McDavid absolutely look like war-torn veterans. Like they've got the grizzled look now. It seems like they know what to do. Is it that's making the difference? And again, they haven't won this series, so let's see if they win it. But is it that's making the difference to this point, or is it additions of guys like Tavares and O'Reilly that have maybe made the difference?
The additions very much help. Ryan O'Reilly, for me, is the biggest one that helps, and Luke Shen is not far behind, and you guys got a good look at him there. Like the impact that Luke Schenn has had on that team, in the locker room, on the bench, the small little things that have allowed those players that you just talked about to play their game with no fear and not being intimidated by a guy like Tanner Jeannot yelling over on the bench, or Patty Maroon saying, I'm going to get you, I'm going to run you over. Like, that's had a huge impact. And as far as those players' internal growth, I would hope that after 7 years of losing in the first round, you would learn a thing or two and you would apply it.
Yeah.
Like, it just seems like like they're just too good of players to not have success and not break through. And the other thing, like Mike Johnson says this all the time, the law of averages would tell you, like, when you're dealing with that kind of skill and ability, at some point it's bound to happen. It really is. You can't hold them down too long. Now, that's not just because they've matured. That's part of it. They've also added pieces like O'Reilly and Luke Schenn, and that's part of it. And they're also taking advantages of matchups right now that are going their way. Like, 2 times Austin Matthews has played a big role because he tips a puck in the back of the net. And 2 times he's battling with Darren Radish in front of the net. Now, Eric Chernak is not in this series. How does that battle go different if Eric Chernak is there? Does he maybe tie up the stick? Is Matthews maybe on the seat of his pants in front? Like, so that you take advantage of a matchup there. The one where Ryan O'Reilly ties it up in the last minute of the game, it sneaks under Andrei Vasilevsky's arm. That's uncharacteristic. It's a leaky goal that doesn't usually happen. The other thing that doesn't usually happen is Ian Cole standing next to him in the last minute. That's Hedman, that's Chernak, that's McDonough. Like, so they've yes, all that stuff has happened, but they've also taken advantage of what's going on around them. Whereas in the past, if that has happened, it's like there's the letdown. There's the letdown goal from the goaltender, whoever it was, Campbell, Anderson, you name it. Like, Samsonov has done well. And that's part of the equation. So it seems like when people say things feel different, yes, the maturity is there. Things are going your way. And in Edmonton, it does. And in Edmonton, like, forget about it. Like, McDavid and Draisaitl are this Draisaitl is incredible in the playoffs. And someone asked me the other day, like, tell us why. Like, I mean, you're almost at a loss for words to tell you why. Like, he's big. He's strong. And when the ice shrinks around other players, he's like, no, I worked through that.
He's not Mario Lemieux, but he's a reasonable facsimile. Like, he's
I was sitting with
close.
Pounder. We're sitting doing the Oilers post-game hit. And we're like, what's a comparable for this guy? And we kind of were both looked at each other like, is Jaromir Jagr? Does that make sense? And we both agreed. Yeah. And then I was like, well, he plays a lot of the game on his backhand too. So is he kind of like Henrik Sedin in that regard? Because he's a disher and then he's a goal scorer. It's like this guy's like a mix of the Sedin twins and Jaromir Jagr. I mean, you know what I'm trying to say. It's inflammatory, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Well, and you know that the passing ability too, I think, holds up to a Hank Sedin comparison. Hell, even an Adam Oates comparison. Boy, can he pass the puck? He sees it so well and distributes the puck beautifully. But I'm glad you got around to the Tampa defenseman, the injured Tampa defenseman, Frank, because that's the other thing that needs to be shouted if the Leafs win this series. And frankly, I thought it was too harsh for Bunting at the time, but now I'm all okay with that suspension. And here's why. When you target one of the best players on the other team and you take him out for the series and you wind up winning the series like that, you know, that's kind of a dirty pull.
It is.
That's a dirty way to win it. And I know some people will say, hey, that's playoff hockey. Yeah. So be it. But I sure hope the Department of Player Safety goes, that isn't playoff hockey, or at least that's not the way we want teams advancing. Here's your big suspension.
Fair. And at the time, when Bunting got the 3 games, it was interesting because the Hartman hit on Ehlers had just happened. And Hartman gets 1 game, and Ehlers hasn't played in the playoffs. He's expected to play tonight, but that could have helped Winnipeg in a big way. He hasn't been available. And to be honest with you, this is not me being a Leaf Toronto guy. I thought the Hartman hit was worse than the Bunting one. I thought it was just egregious, but he gets the 1 game, Bunting gets 3. I actually don't have an issue with Bunting getting 3. And I'll tell you why. Like, the puck is nowhere near him. It's not an effective play. It's not a necessary play. And you elbowed the guy in the head. So I have no problem with 3. I just don't know what's different about Hartman and Bunting where both those guys got different suspensions. But it has been a big factor in the series, the fact that Cernak has not been out there. Like, with the amount of goals the Leafs have scored in front of Tampa's net, like, it's very noticeable. And it's not you don't want to celebrate that kind of stuff. You don't want to, build it up that Bunting knocked Cernak out of the series. But it has been a reality. And unfortunately, as a team, you need to take advantage of situations like that, just like the Vegas Golden Knights have taken advantage of Morrissey being out and Scheifele's out and Ehlers has been out. The Leafs have to take advantage of Tampa Bay. It's almost like a kill or be killed.
No, for sure. For sure. You can't blame the players and coaches from that point forward. They're out to win the game and take advantage of the break that they got. And, Ehlers playing tonight, and we've seen this a lot. You wonder if he's playing just because the team is facing elimination, right? And he feels like he has to, because we've certainly seen that in the past. Remember Daniel Sedin, Blake, against the
Shifley out,
Kings
Ehlers in gives you a fighting chance, right?
It seems like it's a desperation. Because if you weren't ready two days ago and you weren't cleared, it's like, how ready are you right now? And listen, I admire a guy for trying to get in there. It's the playoffs, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it seems like it is a desperation move.
Quickly, Frank, are the Seattle Kraken going to advance here? Are the champs going to lose to a second-year franchise in round one?
They honestly could. There's another hit. I thought that Cale Makar hit could have got more than one game. That's Jared McCann. That's a 40-goal scorer. That's their leading point getter. He's arguably a bigger piece of Seattle than Erik Cernak is to Tampa Bay. So they take advantage last night. And the kid who replaced Jared McCann, Ty Cartier, who's a really nice story, playing in Sault Ste. Marie. He was an overager last year and signs a free agent contract with the Kraken. He scores what would have been the game winner if Colorado didn't score late in the game. But that's a big goal for them. Seattle did a really nice job of limiting Colorado off the rush. They are living and dying right now with McKinnon, Rantanen, and Rodriguez, what they can do off the rush. Because once you get in the defensive zone, Seattle actually does a pretty good job there. I find they're pretty stingy. And they're a simple team offensively. I think they are somewhat limited in what they can do offensively, but it's almost like they've bought into certain schemes and, winning battles and retrieving pucks where it's they play well together as a group, and that allows them to score just enough. And they have some players that can shoot the puck for sure. But it's a group of good players, not necessarily anyone great. And if a group of good players wants to have good results, they need to buy into playing a certain way, and they've done that. They play to their structure, they play to their scheme, and they don't really vary from it. So there's a lot of buy-in there. I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised if Seattle finishes off Colorado.
I know it was very brief, your overlap with McCann here in Vancouver. Did you get to know him at all?
We actually share the same agent, so I know him a little bit more than maybe the brief time there. And we've actually trained together for 2 or 3 summers when we were back here in Toronto. I don't know where he was a really good player back then. You could see the shot and the goal scoring ability, his ability to beat goaltenders clean as a 19-year-old rookie in the NHL. The trade never made much sense, and Jared McCann has gone on to do great things in the NHL.
Well, so you then saw a guy who was going to be a good goal scorer in the NHL because, boy, I realized he got called up early, and that might have been the worst thing that happened to him early on. But, 14, we thought he would settle in as sort of a middle six forward. Maybe he could play some center for you, but the explosion this year to 40 goals.
Well, this is what happens when you go to a team like Seattle and they don't have a superstar where you're saying this guy is penciled in for this spot no matter what. There's players on Seattle that have been given opportunities that they wouldn't have had if they were on the teams they were on previously, and a lot of those guys have made good on it. It's amazing what can happen when you find players like that and put them in opportunities to succeed. And Jared McCann's a great example of that. And there's a number of other guys. I think Daniel Sprong is one of those guys who,
Yep.
He had a tough time finding his way at one point, but he's kind of utilized his shot more to his advantage. I think Tolvanen was a guy who was put on waivers. He's contributed to that team. Jordan Eberle is a resurgence now of the Jordan Eberle that we knew early on. The World Junior guy, it seems like. So it's been really impressive to see that group kind of band together as a lot of good players. and you're getting a lot of good contributions, and it's deeper into the lineup than maybe a team where it's like, these are our three superstars, and that's it.
Yeah. I'll say this, Vancouver, Florida, Pittsburgh, and the Leafs, who held his rights briefly before the expansion draft, all regret
they should have
Jared
asked
McCann
me.
go.
Like, if one of those teams asked me, I would have said, don't trade this guy. I 100%, right from 18 years old.